This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me this evening are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
We've got 6 new films to look at this week. We're going to kick off with a new Chinese sci-fi thriller, Restart the Earth. Then we have Neil McDonough in Boon. Little Bone Lodge is a new British thriller. Then we have Gurkha, Resurrection of Charles Manson, and finally, the awesomely low-budget Killer Kites. Our short shot is a film called Joe, and then our DTV throwback will be Revenge of the Green Dragons. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film, then, is Restart the Earth. Now, bear with me because this is the synopsis from IMDb. I quote, "In order to combat desertification, humans have developed drugs that promote the accelerated reproduction of plant cells, but they have accidentally liberated the stress system of plants and awakened plant emotions." Do either of you recognize any of that from this?
Not really, no.
I think that was from some of the very quickly presented exposition.
I think so, isn't it? So what we have here is basically plants gone wild and taken over the earth.
Day of the Triffids, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Day of the Triffids. I mean, it was funny because when Steve read the actual synopsis, he goes, "Oh, this sounds like The Happening." And I was like, "No, I don't think this is The Happening." I think it's definitely a bit more exciting than that. It's a very well put together action thriller. Some decent special effects, some a bit ropey, admittedly. But it is one of these sort of like men on a mission who are, the team is getting knocked out one by one as they get nearer their goal. There are some really good set pieces along the way. I had a really good time with this. Steve, how did you get on with the Chinese Happening?
Yeah, like I say, some really good CGI, some ropey CGI. Yeah, it's a bit far-fetched, but it is enjoyable. It kind of reminded me of like The Last of Us with plants instead of zombies. The aesthetic of it, and the
way that it's all taken over. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, but no, it's decent. It's fun. I mean, I especially enjoyed the bit in the bus, which was far over the top. But yeah, it was great. I mean, some of them are a little bit annoying. Like, I think it's called 21.
Oh yeah,
he's a bit of a screamer, and the kid's not.
He's the comic relief, isn't he? Basically.
Yeah, but a bit too much. But yeah, I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really well done. The story's pretty decent. It's not. I don't think it's a IP, shall we say? I think it's an original story. But no, I really, really enjoyed this. To be fair,
it is a lot of fun. I think. Rich, how did you get on with Restart the Happening?
Yeah, I liked it as well. I mean, it's very, very fast paced. It's very bombastic. It's it's an action driven story. Very much of that, like you say, men on a mission, sort of perilous journey. They're starting from A and they've got to get to B. Made me think of for example, the remake of Poseidon Adventure. Followed a similar kind of structure. You've got a bunch of survivors. You've got to get them through a series of obstacles to get to their ultimate destination. And in this case, this is one of the, instead of just trying to survive, they're trying to get to a place to perform an action. And this is the whole motivation of trying to save the Earth, basically, and reclaim the Earth, which has been overrun. It also, the whole plants taking over thing, there's some Ray Bradbury kind of stuff, and also Sound of Thunder. and what was the other one? Girl with All the Gifts came to mind. You know, the sort of the style of it.
Yeah.
But yes, it is very. It's very CG, very green screen. Some of it looks pretty solid, and some of it looks, although impressive, you know, because even on the green screen kind of stuff, the complexity of the backgrounds and stuff, you know, the artwork that's been done, you know, on a computer or whatever it is good. It's very good, but not particularly convincing. And also, a lot of it feels like it's been pieced together by from other movies, and it seemed to me, whereas we've got quite a lot of big Chinese blockbusters getting released, Netflix or on the cinemas over here, and I think this one is much closer to the B movies that there are many turning up on YouTube, like Youku and stuff. But there's a lot of there's been some video essays on that I've watched about the what they call these Chinese schlockbusters, kind of creature feature movies that they're just churning out like crazy with just whatever monster it is. This I think is slightly above some of those because there's so much visual effects. It's not like there's just a creature or whatever, and it's like Asylum or something, you know. It's CG the whole way through, and some of it is very very solidly done. I was quite pleased that it wasn't dubbed. It's in original language. The production quality is pretty good, and the floor is quite. The other thing that sort of likens it to the B movies is that it's only an hour and a half. It's like just under an hour and a half, whereas usually you would expect if it was like Wandering Earth or whatever it is, you know, you're looking at like 2 hours or something. This is like a boom, 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 and I thought maybe it was like an edit. That maybe there was a longer version, but IMDb only mentions the hour and a half cut, so maybe there's another longer version that goes into more detail with some of the characters, as I would expect from higher profile Chinese films. You know, there's a lot of characterization usually. In here it's closer also to something like Skyfire, which again that was a much higher standard than this, but you know, of a similar vein, you know, very much disaster sort of driven. I mean, this one's got the disaster. The disaster has already happened, but they're kind of like trying to still deal with the disaster. So it's an interesting kind of variation on the disaster movie where they're still dealing with the fallout. You know, we actually. Another film that I was watching, because this, like I said, it feels very piecemeal. There's that whole flashback bit where they're like in traffic and stuff, and I was thinking it really brought to mind I Am Legend. I think there's a bit of I Am Legend in here.
I Am Legend and what's the other one? A Quiet Place. Quiet Place 2, especially.
Yeah. So there's all that sort of stuff going on. I like the cast, like the characters. 21. Yeah, he's the comic relief, but they don't do too much with him, thankfully. I mean, it's a bit obvious, especially these days, to go, the comic relief guy has to be a fat guy. But I quite liked him. I thought he was all right, and they didn't sort of, you know, it wasn't too derogatory a performance or whatever. I mean, the bit where he's trying to climb across that, you know, the journey across a perilous kind of ladder kind of situation that a lot of these, which again, Poseidon had one of those, and also more recently the Scream 6 had trying to get across the ladder sequence and stuff as well. So this is like them trying to get across a crane that's fallen across the buildings, and that was pretty crazy. So I was there, there's no way he's going to balance on there. None of them are, but you know, it's fun, it's crazy. And I always think it's funny with these how, I mean, it's great for spot the cliches, but you know, they go, oh, we finally got to this place that we need to do to perform this action, which luckily is completely intact. And it's like, oh, we've got to find the switch or whatever, and I go, oh, there's the switch. So, everything is always really and how that whenever there's a problem, somebody can always come up with a solution like immediately. There's like no, it's like 24. It's like it's so fast paced, nobody could act that quickly and stuff. But yeah, it's fun. I did like it. I thought it was good. If I can just mention a couple of other things, there's the tentacles of, well, not the vines, I should say, which are kind of like sentient vines. I got strong vibes from Deep Rising,
Yes,
but crossed with Tremors, and also the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. It's kind of a composite kind of creature thing, which I thought they did it quite well.
Yeah.
There's also one of the scenes with that is also very, very similar to a scene in Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. Yeah, so I think this is very much a kind of composite thing. Great, it's a blast. I mean, it's good, solid, hour and a half, blockbuster entertainment. I think you know what you get when you go in, and I don't think you'll be disappointed because it's just so much happening in it.
Absolutely, and it does the sort of thing that sort of Asian films, sort of Chinese, Korean, Japanese, they do very well. And that's, they even in something as pulpy as this, they find sort of the emotional core, when everything's on the line. There's two bits. It's like, the can-do spirit of like, no, we have to do this. We have to sort of throw everything at it, and then you got the other bit, the sort of self-sacrifice bit at the end.
Yeah. There's always the self.
There's always that sort of thing. It's like, God,
and the sort of and the national pride.
Yeah, and the national pride.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, who did this? Who saved the world? It's us, the Chinese. It's like,
I mean, to be fair, you've got like 3 or 4 self-sacrificing bits, really, haven't you?
Oh
yeah.
It's
splattered all the way through. But yeah, I just enjoyed it. It was just nice, quick, in and out, done, dusted. There we go.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching this with Josh. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this with my son, basically, when I get hold of a copy, physical copy, that is. But yeah, okay. Scores on the doors, Steve.
I'll give it a 7.
And Rich.
Yeah, solid 7.
It is a very solid 7. I mean, there's nothing, as we've said, there's nothing original here. It does sort of playfully sort of cherry pick ideas and set pieces, but it does put it together pretty well. And it is, a breezy 90 minutes. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. So there you go, 3 7s for Restart the Earth. Go check it out. Our next film is Boon. The widowed Catherine is busy trying to protect herself and her son from local criminal organization. When Nick Boon and Catherine's lives cross paths, they find themselves leaning on each other to protect everything they stand for. This stars Neil McDonough. He's one of those actors, he usually plays bad guys. And he usually plays very good bad guys, but he's also turned up in things like Agent Carter as one of the Howling Commandos and things like that. Very good actor, always a good presence, and I think he's really good here as this sort of he's almost like a character out of time, wearing his hat, his trilby, never seems to take it off.
Well, he's trying to be inconspicuous, isn't he?
Yeah, very inconspicuous. Yeah, the only guy in town wearing a bloody hat. We say this a lot. It's nothing original. We've seen this kind of thing lots of times. Van Damme has done loads of these sort of films. We have the stoic loner trying to keep out of trouble because trouble's looking for him, ending up helping out somebody who basically needs his help. One of the things I did like about this is the characters. The characters are very well written for this sort of film. No one's pontificating, no one's like monologuing or anything like that. We think about some of the Bruce Willis films we've had to put up with. The characters are really well done. And yeah, just the performances I just thought were absolutely superb. Rich, what do you make of this one?
I thought it was pretty decent. Unfortunately, it's not an adaptation of the Michael Elphick television series. But it is a sequel to a film that I haven't seen, which is called Redstone.
All right.
So I'll be interested to see that.
Yeah.
It starts out and during the opening credits it says Jason Scott Lee, and I was like, "Ooh,
Yes.
Jason Scott Lee!"
And
it turns out he's dead in 5 minutes, and he doesn't have any dialogue and that. So I was thinking, I feel sorry for Jason Scott Lee. Is this what his career has kind of come to? Have they? It seems like they just sort of threw him a bone or something of whatever. So anyway, so that's disappointing. But get that out of the way. We do have Tommy Flanagan as one of his typical sort of, I'd say sleazy, but he's sort of too smart to be sleazy. But he's, you know what I mean. He's that sort of nasty piece of work kind of character that he plays quite well in quite a lot of things. Neil McDonough, I don't know, I'm not quite sold on him, but it was interesting to see him in this kind of lead role. I do think the character's choice of attire is it's sort of a bit strange. It's sort of a bit, I don't know, they're trying to be a bit of a throwback thing, I guess, which is fair enough. But yeah, as you've mentioned, it is that kind of guy's trying to stay out of trouble, ends up crossing paths with someone who needs his help. You know, the basis for every television series in the 1980s. This could easily be one of the, I mean, it feels like a TV movie. It feels like it could have been made in the 80s, really. I mean, it's got quite a TV sort of standard to it. I think it's got, you know, Steven Seagal movies as well, a bit similar, you know, that whole, he's trying to get away, but, you know, there's like two plots going on. He's got to help someone, but there's also somebody's coming after him, and that's all going to sort of come together, which it does quite nicely here, I think. The film that came to my mind of that type that I thought this felt like it was practically a remake of was Malone with Burt Reynolds. I thought there were a lot of similarities with that film. That's a superior film, obviously, but I thought it was pretty decently done. There's not a lot more to say about it than that. I think there's some CGI used for the gunfire and the blood and stuff, which unfortunately that's kind of a sign of the times. That's what they do now. But
but having said that, it didn't look too bad.
I don't know. Some of it looked really rough, but
I didn't mind it. Yeah.
But I will say that unlike a TV movie or something, some of it was much more surprisingly violent than I was expecting. So it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. So was he okay? It's like some CGI blood, but the action that he just performed there is like, right, okay, fair.
One of the things I did like is the scheme that the bad guys are running. I thought was actually quite original. I thought, oh, okay, well, we haven't seen that one quite often, you know. I thought that was sort of decently done as well. So
yeah, and it's another variation on. I mean, we watched Cyan last week, which was a different kind of setup because they weren't participating. But if they had the leverage, for example, in that film, if they'd had leverage over them, that would have been their situation, kind of thing. They would have been they would have had to go along with it and then needed someone's help. That's kind of the variation.
Yeah, the one thing that didn't make sense was why these people were going into her house. There was absolutely no need for them to go, you know, to do that. It was just like, well,
I think it was just intimidation.
Yeah.
I think I was just trying to keep her on edge. I did like Christina Ochoa as Emilia, who's it's like she's the second in command to the bad guy. She's the odd job factor kind of character, but she's very smartly turned out all the time, and she's connected to the bad guy in a way you don't expect. It's like there's like a little bit of a revelation through it. They don't go into a huge amount of detail about it, but it's kind of the fact that they don't say much about it kind of tells you a lot about the two characters. So I don't want to spoil that, but there's an interesting dynamic there, and there's some nice with Tommy Flanagan. I like her better than Tommy Flanagan. Tommy Flanagan's kind of the guy who does all the talking, and she's kind of sort of simmering in the background, and she goes and sort of leads the team kind of stuff later in the movie, where we get a bit more of an assault kind of scene, which I really like. I did think the action because there's not a lot of action in most of it, but it really picks up at the end, and I did like that. especially when there's that other character who's sort of on the periphery and he gets involved as well.
Yeah.
I think everything comes together really nicely in that final act.
We've got those two idiots as well, Bud and Price, who are
Yes.
like sort of henchmen, and also sort of the catalyst for a lot of the problems that they have.
But they're quite well drawn, though, aren't they?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they're well performed characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's the stuff like you putting the feet up on the table and get the feet up, and the other one's pushing his, get your feet up. You know, there's this sort of weird. There's this. You know, they're mates and they're sort of looking after each other and they're doing the same thing, but at the same time they don't really like each other very much. So there's some interesting sort of interplay happening with them, and just again the sort of sleazy nastiness of their characters really comes across. Yeah,
but I mean, I'm always, as you know, I'm a big fan of like these situations where bad guys overestimate their own badassness and end up biting off more than they can chew. And you know, I love that sort of Schadenfreude sort of scenario, and we get that with these guys, which is really cool.
What do you think about the making the character, the woman in peril, as it were, here, making her a preacher? Because I felt like that was the thing they introduced, but they don't really do much with it, and I wasn't quite sure why.
It kind of reminded me of Grace Kelly's character in High Noon. Actually, because she was like a pacifist character and sort of trying to convince like Gary Cooper that, you know, you don't have to fight and all the rest of it. And then of course at the end of that film she picks up a gun and sort of shoots one of the bad guys saves his life. And that's I suppose that's what they were trying to do here, is like say no, you know, God will save you and all the rest of it. And so in the end you know, kind of has to take matters in her own hand. So yeah, I think that was her sort of story arc, basically.
Right.
Anyway, how are you going to score it?
Well, I think it's a very you know, there's nothing special about it. It's worth watching if it's on telly or whatever. But you know, there's a lot better versions of this particular story. I'm going to give it a 5.
Oh, that's harsh, Rich. I'm going to go one higher than that. I'm going to give this a 6. I did enjoy it a lot, but I do agree. It's kind of like a domestic brand beer, I guess. You know, it's not going to blow your socks off, but it is very well put together, very well acted, good characterization. It has made me want to go check out the prequel now, or the previous film. So it has that going for it. There are a couple of nice little artistic bits, like when Boon's chasing the guy down the tunnel and all he's got is his lighter. I thought that was really cool, and I like the slightly mid-credit scene as well. That was you know,
I was wondering whether you caught that, because they it could so easily have been I'll just shut it off. It just happened to be that I left it running for a couple of minutes, and I was because this isn't the kind of movie that you would expect that to happen in. So I'm glad I didn't miss it.
I assume that happened a little bit later, that, you know, once wounds have healed and all the rest of it. But yeah, no, it's solid, I thought. So it's a 5 and a 6 for Boon. Go check it out. Our next film is Little Bone Lodge. Set during a vicious storm, 2 criminal brothers on the run seek refuge in a desolate farmhouse. Taking the resident family captive, they find the house holds dark secrets of its own. Dun, dun, dun. Unfortunately, I didn't get to catch this, but what I have seen of it, I did sort of watch the first sort of 10-15 minutes. I am interested in sort of seeing how it plays out. Steve, what did you make of Little Bone Lodge?
Decent little English thriller, really. You know, a bit cliched at the start when, you know, 2 criminals turn up on this family's doorstep, you know, asking for help in the middle of a storm.
Yeah, one of them's injured and that.
Injured, yeah. And then, you know, obviously you've got like the disabled husband, wife and daughter. And then, but there's something off. There's something not creepy about the family. And they've got to go get the bag from the criminal's car that's crashed and blah blah blah. And it just ratchets up the tension as it goes and keeps going until the twist, and then I just thought it was really, really good. This I really enjoyed it. I thought Jolie Richardson actually brought a decent bit of class to it. She's great. Well, they're all great, really. But it's one of them. It's kind of set in one location. You've got the house and then a car crash, and it's just really well done. Really enjoyed it. And the twist, you kind of see something coming, but not where it goes. It really does come out of nowhere. Kind of reminded me of like, what's it called? Is it Just Breathe? Fede Alvarez.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Don't Breathe.
Kind of
Don't Breathe, yeah.
Don't Breathe, sorry, that was it, yeah. That kind of twist. It just comes out of left field, really, and you're like, oh, shit, okay. But yeah, no, really, really enjoyed this one.
That's good. Rich, how did you get on with Little Bone Lodge?
Yeah, I liked it a lot as well. Again, as I say, it is quite familiar territory, but it is a very well told story. And for me, it's the way, I mean, the performances are really good, and the script I think is really solid. But the thing that really sells it for me and makes it particularly engaging was I thought it was very, very well shot. Whether it was, I'm not sure if it was on sets or location or whatever, but it's all interior for the most part. And well, there's some sort of around the grounds sort of area. It's a bit weird because at the end of it, you kind of, they might have shown it at the beginning, but there's a lighthouse, and it's like, I don't remember seeing a lighthouse. They didn't really make much of that, but there was a lighthouse there. But it's in the home kind of thing, and it's just really, really atmospheric. It's you mentioned previously, Mike, about liking films about people who've sort of bitten off more than they can chew, and that's kind of what the case is here. There's certainly characters getting more than they bargained for, tables getting turned, and that sort of stuff. Don't really want to go into too much details because it will spoil it, but there's you've got a small number of characters, but they do a lot with them, and it's quite clever, quite engaging. It doesn't do everything you expect. It kind of does some things you expect, but there's other things that happen. I could liken it to something like The Owners, which we covered, but it's very different. It's very different. That had a bit more of a not necessarily comedic edge, but a kind of bit more obvious. That one, like all the stuff with Sylvester McCoy and that they did in that.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Whereas, which I did like, in this one, it's a bit more, I would say, nuanced about the characters and their motivations and who's who, and how we should feel about them. So we've got these dodgy characters who turn up. There's a bit of an mice and men kind of feeling to them and their relationship, but we get to know each of the characters and sort of understand their motivations and stuff, which I quite liked. Again, it's quite brisk. I think it's about an hour and a half long. It's just very, very good. One of the films I've most enjoyed so far this year, definitely.
That's good to know. Okay, Steve, how are you going to score it?
I'll give it an 8.
Wow. Okay, and Rich?
I am going to give it an 8 as well.
And I'm really regretting not watching it, but I will be making amends in the next couple of days. Okay, 2 8s for Little Bone Lodge. Go check it out. Our next review is 1915 Legend of the Gurkhas. This is a psychological war drama inspired by true events of Rifleman Kulbir Thapa, an inexperienced soldier who goes through an incredible journey that eventually cements his name among the legendary Gurkha warriors. Okay, so this is a relatively low budget film, but it's well shot. it's a very sparse part of the trenches during World War One. Not many soldiers on either side seem to be knocking around this particular bit. You know, but it does a decent job of you know, following this character and the things that happens to him. And there is quite a bit of incident throughout the film. You know, he comes across a few German soldiers. He comes across a British officer as well as some other Gurkhas. There's things going on. There's also these really strange interludes, which are like sort of like avant-garde modern dance things, where suddenly, yeah, exactly. He has these sort of out-of-body experiences where, like, he ends up in like a white environment and seeing his, you know, his girlfriend or some other thing, and you know, other times he's sort of attacked by sort of naked people and all this sort of weirdness going on. Just sort of try and show the sort of psychological trauma that he's going through, I guess. You know, but it's not bad. I'd sort of put it on a level of like a Steve Lawson production. Really, you know, it wouldn't be out of place alongside his sort of films. Some of the acting, especially the British guys, you know, a bit wobbly at times, but all the costumes, all the uniforms seem authentic. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, they shot it in a quarry somewhere, but it looks like, and sort of built a few sort of trenches. But like all the other films that we've discussed so far, this doesn't outstay its welcome. You know, it's only another sort of 90-minute film. And if you know, we know, Rich, that, you know, there is a huge market in the UK for war films of any description. So I wouldn't be surprised to sort of see this doing well in the you know, in the charts coming soon. Personally, I would give this a 6 out of 10. If it's your thing, go check it out. Our next review is The Resurrection of Charles Manson. While a couple edits a Charles Manson movie in an Airbnb, the film's dark events begin to come true in a mysterious plot of a hidden leader. Well, yes, close. Close.
Is that what they were doing? I thought she was going to audition for a movie or something.
I know. So we have Catherine Hughes, who we'll be mentioning later on.
Yes, it's a complete coincidence, by the way.
Yeah.
Like when I chose that short film, that was before we even scheduled this. So
that's right. Yeah. So we do have this couple. She's an actress. Her boyfriend's a photographer, I believe. I don't think he's a cameraman as such. But she's an actress. She wants to go for this part, and she's sort of convinced him to sort of come away to the desert with her, so she can, you know, rehearse, learn her lines, that sort of thing, and he can take some photos. And you know, he's also planning to propose to her while they're there. But there's weird shit going on around them, as happens. You know, as any time anyone goes anywhere remote in a film, you know, something weird's going to happen. We know this. We have Frank Grillo as a sort of enigmatic, sort of local leader of the community kind of thing. But you know, we know right from the beginning of the film that he's up to no good. We don't know what he's doing, but it's no good for sure. I did like this eventually. It took me a while, probably. You know, there was some weird shit going on. There was some stupid shit going on. There's a bit where the girl's sort of dancing around the, you know, this villa that they're in, and we see someone moving in the bedroom behind her. You know, there's a strange figure in the background, sort of thing, and nothing comes of it at all. It's just like, oh, it's almost as if they did it and they went, oh, actually, it's a bit early for that sort of thing, isn't it? You know, and it just sort of disappears again. It's like, okay. It's almost as if they're sort of making it up as they're going along a little bit. But I did enjoy it as the you know, the boyfriend cottons on a bit more as to what's going on. I thought that made it a lot more interesting. Yeah, and the flashback sort of structure, I thought it was a bit confusing at times, but I did like the fact that they did it. It did sort of add a little more depth to it. Anyway, Steve, how did you get on with the resurrection of Charles Manson?
No, I didn't enjoy this, to be fair. I thought it was too muddled. I thought the characters were too cliched, redneck in the middle of nowhere, that kind of thing.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden at the end, they just tag on this supernatural element, which kind of came out of nowhere, to me. And then
it's difficult to sort of say where it went as well. You say it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's like, well, but then where does it go? It sort of dies a death a bit.
Yeah, and it just didn't. It just didn't work for me at all. I thought it was a bit all over the place, to be fair. And I thought Frank Grillo was the only one who's actually given a decent performance, but I don't think he's in the same film as everybody else, if you know what I mean. I don't know, it just seems to be doing something from somewhere else, and it just didn't gel, didn't work. And the ending and the credits annoyed me as well, because that just seemed to be ripping off Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it annoyed me in that as well. It was just like Brad Pitt driving around for 5 minutes, and just I don't know, it just seems to be extending the running time and kind of stick that in the end here, and it just doesn't work. There's no need for it.
It felt a bit like Michael Haneke's stuff, It was just like just there for its own sake, sort of thing. It's very, very strange.
Yeah, so I didn't get on with this at all. Really, I was quite disappointed, to be fair.
The one thing which really did sort of take me out of the film was the music. These horrendous songs that they're listening to and singing along to. If I was in that film, I would be smashing that bloody radio into smithereens. It was just so, it's like fingernails down the blackboard.
Yeah.
I absolutely hated the music. Rich, where do you sit with this one?
I liked it. I did. I wasn't looking forward to it a huge amount. I was a bit worried that I thought it was going to be a bit rough and ready. But because it's got like a 75-minute running time pretty much, and it's the directorial debut of Frank Grillo's son, and I was like, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. Is it going to be like a really sort of low budget, sort of quite rough kind of thing? But no, it's very, very solidly made. It's quite, made to a decent polished standard, clearly with some budget limitations, but I think it works with them quite well. Again, the running time may be part of that, and maybe that's why it's as short as it is. The Charles Manson stuff is interesting because it's kind of I wasn't sure what they were going to do with it exactly, and what the title was actually implying, but it actually is a bit more literal than I actually expected it to be.
I thought, I was surprised at how literal it is.
There's, like you say, there's a few weird scenes. There's Frank Grillo's scene where he's like practicing his speech, and in that scene, budget limitations are really obvious because the setting, the location that he's in is like really quite sparse, and like it's like a curtain hanging and a table with something, and it's supposed to be like his office or something. It looks, and it's all shot in like quite close up, so that sort of wasn't really selling the sort of grander sort of environment. It was a bit more budget limit, say sort of production design limitations in there, I think. Yeah, that was a bit weird. But then you got the other scenes where he's sort of being the charismatic sort of leader kind of stuff, and he is Frank Grillo. He's doing what he does quite nicely, and all this. He's not. I mean, a few years ago he kind of fell into this. Well, I'm going to have my hair a certain way and my beard a certain way, and I'll act a certain way, and that's what people want. So that's what he gives. You go back a few years earlier than that, he was, different haircuts and all sorts, but now he's very much a type. So you want Frank Grillo, you get Frank Grillo, no matter what kind of role he's in. He's always that slightly greasy, kind of rough character, even if he's playing like a banker or whatever it is. I don't know, but I liked him. I thought he was pretty good, and solid direction. The thing that I keep coming back to is how many cult movies we're watching lately.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of them, and in relation to that, it's a film I keep mentioning because I watched it recently and I keep seeing echoes of it in so much stuff. It's Get Out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plot developments and stuff that are in this. I was thinking, let's Get Out again. It's like I'm seeing the same thing. But we've got, it's another story of a couple going in, getting into this kind of situation, and I will say Catherine Hughes, who we mentioned earlier, is also a director that we've covered a few of her short films previously. And we'll talk about her a bit more later, but I'm not seen her much as an actress, and I liked her in this. I actually didn't know it was her until after watching it, and I'd sort of looked her up and I went, hang on a minute, that's the director of Yellow Bell Fury and all that sort of stuff. I liked her.
Yeah, I did as well. It was a sort of decent performance, and it was an interesting character that sort of like, you get to a certain point, that's a sort of turn on its head sort of thing. So yeah, I did enjoy that. Cool. Okay, guys. Rich, how are you going to score this?
I'm going to go 6, I think. Just mark it down for a couple of things that didn't quite work for me, but overall, I thought it was pretty decent.
Steve?
I'll give it a 5.
I'm going to join Rich on a 6. There was bits early on I wasn't really engaging with, and the music, that bloody song. Oh, Jesus! But
I was wondering because I didn't watch the
was
credits.
That the Charles Manson song? Yeah.
Exactly. I was wondering, was that because I know Charles Manson was.
He was an aspiring musician.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, he was a sort of frustrated musician, and I did wonder that myself. But
so whether that's his songs or covers of his songs or songs that are made in the style of his stuff, I don't know. But But I thought that was interesting that the IMDb description and stuff is so different. It's like, was that one of the original ideas that they were working on a film? Because this one,
I did get
it's
that impression,
sort of auditioning, rehearsing.
That's it. I did get the impression it was going to be sort of a bit like The Town That Dreaded Sundown. I don't know if you saw the remake, because that was very meta, because you had, you had the original murders, then you had like the original film based on the murders, and then you had the anniversary of the film and the murders and somebody murdering. It was really, really clever the way it was done. And I was wondering if this was going to be that sort of thing where the filmmaking is going to sort of merge with the actual sort of thing that's going on. But it was a bit different the way it could have been budget constraints, as you say. So but there you go.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Because I took it all quite literally, but is there because one of the descriptions was like, oh, they're doing this and it sort of bleeds in, is there a psychological element here, or was it all quite, as far as you guys were concerned, was it all very literal, straight down the line?
I think it was a sort of literal thing what they were trying to do. Very strange. Anyway, so that is 2 6s and a 5 for the Resurrection of Charles Manson. Go check it out. Our next film is Killer Kites. A woman called Abby inherits an old kite, but it's not just any old kite. This one is a bloodthirsty killer, so says IMDb. And who are we to argue with that? Okay, so I think this wins the accolade of lowest budgeted film that we're likely to see this decade.
Well, yeah, it's
It
definitely
is
the lowest budget we've seen so far.
certainly. It is. I mean, it is. It's almost like a badge of honor, though, to this film, isn't it? I mean, I think in certain areas they kind of go out of their way. Like, there's a scene early on where Abby meets this guy to pick up the box which has got the kite in it, and the guy is literally shouting his lines at her.
Yeah, like with no explanation for
no
why.
explanation. And I was thinking, is it because maybe they don't have a boom mic or something, and they're worried that no one's going to pick up his audio, so really pronounce your words, so,
He was doing more than just pronouncing his words. He was, and his dialogue was really weird as well. I mean, which even for this movie, his dialogue, his lines were really strange. Like, it didn't seem to connect. There's a lot of the stuff that he said didn't seem to connect.
It was, it's almost as if he was reading from the wrong page of the script, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, it is overall. I do like this film a lot because it is very funny. It is quite inventive. Yeah, it's almost there's a film that you may be aware of or not called Birdemic, which is
No.
there's a brilliant riff tracks version of it, where they sort of dub a track over the top of it. But it is one of the worst films ever. And the special effects of the birds attacking is very similar to what we see in here with the kites towards the end, where it's just like superimposed on, these little kites. They're very ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's so strange because you kind of thinking there are better special effects filters available on, like, I don't know, Snapchat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I do like the inventiveness of it. So we've got this opening credit sequence, which has all these different sort of figures from history and all these very famous sort of scenes, and they've sort of drawn a kite on each photo in the background, like really sort of thing.
Crudely.
Yeah, but it's like sort of the death of JFK, and there's a kite on the grassy knoll and stuff like this. It's very, 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 very good. I thought when Saddam Hussein's arrested, and the kite in the background, it was very good. I mean, in its own way, that actually reminded me of the opening sequence from Watchmen. Where they sort of redid sort of various historical moments, but with the Watchmen in it. So I thought, okay, I can see what they're going for here.
But it's a comedian in the book depository, isn't they? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but this was pretty well done. The kite is absolutely rubbish. It is literally a piece of, I don't know, tracing paper over a coat hanger kind of thing. But what was funny was her brother sort of like, going apeshit over it, going, "Oh my god, the history of this thing is like," which is quite amazing.
No, because he just, I mean, he kind of opens the chest they inherit from, like, grandma's house or whatever. Take out this, like, and it's clearly a homemade sort of piece of
something you'd be proud if your 5-year-old that made it, but
and like takes it out and is immediately kind of entranced with it and infers all this stuff, and you're thinking, where's he getting that from? It's like, well, this box is at least 30 years old, so this kite must be from World War II. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. But there are some really, really good observational comedy in here. The thing with her Abby's co-worker who's hitting on her. He does that really arsehole thing of sitting on the corner of her desk. I hate that. When I see people doing that, he was great. And just the little things like it was at the cunts yeast bread festival, because kites slap bread.
Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows that.
Like which just really threw me as well. That was like that was the point at which because they're thinking, well, you can't sort of be kind of outraged and
Mm.
you know at that statement, because basically everything leading up to that point has been so ridiculous that
Mm.
you know you sort of like you have to kind of accept it and just sort of
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
just let it wash over you, really, because there was there was there was you can't watch this, you can't go into this film like with any pretensions, you know, that at all, you know, it is the least serious thing I've seen,
Yeah,
I think, ever.
I think. Yeah, I think that there's another film called which has in comparison has a much bigger budget called Zombievers, which
And
is
that has a
about
bigger budget.
has a bigger
Brilliant.
budget and but it's another film which it knows how ridiculous its concept is, but just runs with it. You know what I mean? It is a very funny film, a very good sort of horror comedy. But it knows, it knows exactly what it's doing. You know, it's sort of beavers turning into cannibalistic zombies kind of thing.
Excellent.
It's very funny. But and again, it's like, yeah, we know it's part spoof, part just comedy, parody kind of thing. There are some great bits like the local news guy.
Oh
Can't remember
yeah,
his name.
yeah. The Brock,
Very much like Tucker Carlson kind of thing, and it's like with all this sort of like the bits at the bottom of the screen, so
yeah, like
local news anchor. Okay.
the
Yeah,
strap lines. The strap lines
yeah,
are
they're
like,
strap line.
you know, Brock so and so has a surprising amount of testicles and stuff.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
like,
Was it once hit a hobo with his car and drove on? Yeah,
right, and you know they were actually really dark and funny, each one.
Yeah. They're really really funny. And then you got those two guys, who've been messing around with their golf cart because it's Florida, and, and their mate had died. And in the middle of sort of like giving this sort of eulogy for their mate, they go, "Oh yeah, we're launching a new online currency."
Yeah, the guy, the dude's body's still on top of the golf cart.
Yeah, that's
Like they were talking about him, like, and they say, they're like, and he was dead, and it's terrible, it's really affected us. It's like, yeah, he's still there. Like, you see him, he's like, his foot was hanging off in the background behind him.
That's no, it was very good. There's lots of good visual gags like that. There's a few. These guys, Paul Dale, the director, and Austin Frosh. I think Paul Dale had made this other film called Sewer Gators previously, and there's a couple of bits where they have
shamelessly,
very shamelessly boxes of stuff with Sewer Gators, DVDs and stuff written on them.
They shamelessly hype it up throughout this film, like blatantly. They don't.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's cool. I mean, there's a bit where Abby gets her friends together, and gives them a sort of pep talk towards the end. It's like the black guy. Yeah, it's got the black guy sat there, and she goes, "We've both watched enough horror films. We know you're not going to make it." Yeah. And backward hat guy, you're probably going to lose your dick. Which made me laugh, but that paid off actually.
There was a training montage, wasn't there, where people standing in the those guys basically standing in that, whatever that location was. There was it was this really weird bar.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
They were all met in a really weird bar. Oh, that's it. Yeah, because they were sat. All the guys were sat on at this table, and she comes in and she starts talking. So she's like, "Wait, why are you all sat on the same side of the table?" And they were like, "Oh, lighting."
Yeah. That's good.
I thought, yeah, there was like, it's self-referential stuff in there that about they weren't going to be able to light, if they were sat both sides of the table, sort of thing. And then there was then the really awkward like montage scenes of them like training, like sort of slashing away at imaginary kites. It's kind of really ropey fencing.
Yeah, I think I think it does run out of steam a bit towards the end, but overall, I did find this, as you say, it's quite self-referential. As it is very inventive. There are some great throwaway lines, like when her office mates happen to go through her brother's stuff, and there's a box of used tissues.
Yeah.
And all
In
that
his film,
stuff.
in his DVD collection.
In his DVD
It's got
collection.
it's got a lot of DVDs. Hey, was he sick a lot?
Yeah, that's yeah. It's some good, they don't they don't over egg it. They move on, but you still sort of giggling at it as you go. So yeah, I think there's definitely talent here. Once you sort of get away from the clutter of the sort of the low budgetness of it. I'm glad to hear that it's getting good reviews and good word of mouth, basically, and I hope they get bigger budgets to play with, basically. So
I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that a bigger budget. I'm not sure that a bigger budget would make a huge amount of difference to how they roll.
I know, but it'll just give it a bit more polish, I think that's it. And that polish will be more attractive to a wider audience. People see low budget films and go, I could have done that, I could have filmed that myself, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the temptation with this film is to watch it and be like, well, damn, this looks like someone filmed it on their mobile phone. Like, which
I'm sure scenes of it were probably,
but, and thinking I could do this, but the truth is, this is like an hour and 7 minutes.
Yeah.
This, if anyone sort of going ahead and trying to do this would really be quite surprised at how much, like, how long it takes and how much effort it takes to make even a film as weird and cheap as this.
Well, one of the things I liked about this, one of the things I did like about this, and it does sort of say about sort of the time and the craft they put into it, is that when you have like dialogue scenes, it did actually cut between the two characters. I've seen a lot of films where they just like, I will just film the whole scene in one go.
Yeah,
with everyone in frame.
Camera or something.
Well, not even that. Just like have both people like in frame, talking to each other, and it's like really, because all it means is that you're looking at one person who's waiting for their time to speak. You know what I mean? And vice versa. So, yeah, at least they took the time to sort of say, okay, well, this guy's speaking, concentrate on him. Then the other person speaking, cut and set up again. So yeah, that's proper filmmaking as far as I'm concerned.
It is proper filmmaking, and it takes bloody ages. Even for like relatively simple, static dialogue scenes, and they. I mean, there were actually quite a lot of static dialogue scenes in this, as the kind of utterly bizarre plot exposition was kind of unfolded, especially by the guy in the bathrobe with the
that was quite funny as well, because you think it's like a dream sequence, and then she gets something like, "Oh, you're here."
Yeah, he's still there. He's still like sat there, going, like, "Have you got any breakfast?" Like, but yeah, I mean, it takes a long time, and it takes you have to know what you're doing. Even this film looks rank amateur, like it does, but it's actually not.
But when you scratch the surface, it's it's something more in the spirit of something like Kentucky Fried Movie or something like that. It's got a lot of thought put into the sort of the humor. It's not all slapstick. There's good dialogue bits. There's visual humor going on. It's done really, really well.
Yeah.
On that basis, Will, how are you going to score it?
This is, I'd have to say, one of the most difficult films, I think, that I've had to score, just because like I said, because it looks so ropey. And there's going to be an awful lot of people who are going to watch this and going to be like, how could you give that like more than a 4? And it's like, well, because actually it was supposed to look like this. Like, it's clearly supposed to look like this.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think if you've got a bit of knowledge, I do recommend people do check out Birdemic, which was a straight film. But somebody made that without any, any amount of parody in their soul. And that was the film they wanted to put out as is. Whereas this it's playing on that idea, but sort of delivering a lot of humor as well.
Yeah. I mean, and in terms of scoring it, I think like I can only give this like a 7 upwards, because like there's very little to let it down when if you can score it within the rules and parameters that they've set. Because then they're not trying to make Avatar here.
Exactly.
Like they're making what they made, and I think they obviously, if you look at it within their rules, they've hit all their markers that they want to hit. And I think it's like, I'd agree with you that the only thing wrong with it is that it kind of tails off towards the end. I think it was like overly long. I don't know what happened. But I think
they just didn't really know how to end it. I mean, they bring in sort of Ayn Rand and stuff.
Not wanting to do any spoilers, but I mean, it's the first time I've seen Ayn Rand used in that way ever. I think it was probably be quite a surprise to everyone.
Which I think is kind of ironic in itself, isn't it? I think the fact, because isn't the whole thing about Ayn Rand supposed to be like, being sort of self-sufficient and not relying on anyone, and then someone's relying on Ayn Rand to save them. To fight, basically using Ayn Rand's ideology to fight the kites ideology. Again, don't want to go too far into what that ideology was, because it might be a huge spoiler for someone. I don't know. It's hard to know. It's actually hard to know how to spoil this film. Philosophy students will be studying this in the future, I'm sure.
Quite possibly. Well, I'm gonna give it a 7.
A 7 is a solid score, and I'll join you on that. That is 2 7s for Killer Kites. This is currently available to stream on VOD platforms. I think it was released early on Amazon, at least, because people like us liked it so much. But please check it out. It's just over, what's it, an hour and 7 minutes. So isn't gonna sort of take up your whole evening. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Joe. Out in the Old West, a young woman plots her revenge for the rape and murder of her sister. 10-minute short, quite different to some of the stuff we've covered, but I must admit I loved this. It totally wrong-footed me as to what was going on, until the guy starts coughing a bit when he, it's like, okay, right, got it. She's we have this young lady called Jo. Her sister's been murdered. They don't know who did it and all the rest of it, but she's adamant that she wants to find out. She has a boyfriend who's sort of trying to sort of dissuade her from, it's in the past, forget about it sort of thing, but she's adamant she's going to get her revenge. And boy, howdy does she. Now, I want 2 sequels to this film. Catherine Hughes, get on it. We want to see how this gets resolved. Steve, how do you get on with Joe?
Yeah, found it really good. Nice, sweet, enjoyable. I mean, I'd say the only thing that let it down slightly, and this sounds bad, I don't think it was violent enough.
Okay.
I honestly think that, I know it sounds daft, but the murder, it's too quick. It doesn't show anything. She's just there next minute.
There's not enough catharsis for your liking, basically.
Yeah. It just seems a bit quick and done dusted. And the other thing as well, which baffled me, is she pregnant?
Yeah, she says she is.
Would you get pregnant by the guy who murdered your sister? I don't know whether that's to lure him in or what, or
Yeah.
That was the only thing that kind of threw me as well. But apart from that, I thought it was really well shot. You even get like the searchers
large at
the end, you know, and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
Searchers / dog soldiers homage at the end. But yeah, no, it was I like that. The cinematography was great, very different to what we saw on Happy Mart. You know, much more sort of naturalistic lighting, outdoors. It's sort of not set bound, which is really good. And I just really enjoyed it, and I love that sort of final shot with the knife as well, which is why I'm saying sequel. We need a sequel. Start working down the list. But yeah, very, very enjoyable. Rich, over to you.
Yeah, I think this is Catherine Hughes' best film so far that I've seen. Overall, all round. We talked about her a couple of weeks, Happy Mart, and last year, Yellow Bill Fury. Both of them quite quirky, action-heavy kind of films. This one is a much more of a sort of a slow burn, sort of two-hander character piece kind of thing. Brought to mind more like the opening scene from Inglourious Bastards would be a comparison that I would make.
That's a good comparison.
And I just think it's shot really well. The characters, drawn well. The Jo herself, who's played by I think she's Dutch model actress, primarily, mainly known as a model. Bregje Heinen. I've probably pronounced that completely wrong. She's done 2 shorts with Catherine Hughes. The other one's called Solar Boom, which she's also good in, which is again a different kind of thing, but more typically quirky. This is Catherine Hughes doing a more mainstream sort of non-quirky kind of film. And yeah, I just think it's pretty perfect the way it is. I wouldn't really change anything about it, to be honest. I think the whole setup and the pace, the reveal, everything's really good about it. So what's curious is that this is listed on IMDb as not actually even being out yet, but actually it came out last year. I think it was Film Shortage sort of presented it middle of last year actually, but it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit. I just think it's one of the best films that I've seen in a while, I just cements sort of Catherine Hughes as probably one of my favorite short film directors at the moment, if not my favorite. I say it's there aren't many short film makers out there who I think are sort of hitting the mark so well every time, and in such a fairly short period. Her films have all been made over 3 years, and they're all really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she does next, and sort of bigger projects coming along.
Absolutely. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this one. Really liked the way it builds, the way it sort of you realize what's going on, it's sort of you pick up on just through the conversation and the action, you pick up exactly where we are. And the best line, the line in it which killed me is when he tries to justify what happened, and he goes, well, she wouldn't shut up. It's like, right, well, that's okay then. You don't understand. She kept screaming. It's like, oh, okay, fine. Yeah, brilliant. The fact that he's so clueless as to thinking, that is a perfectly good reason. But anyway, a great.
I just want to step in and say on IMDb it says, and I don't know if you mentioned, I can't remember if you quoted this at the start, but it says that she sets off on a journey of revenge. And I was like, there's no journey in this film. It's all set in her house. It's like, there's no, she's not, I think it sells a different I mean, it's only an 11-minute film, but it sort of sells a different idea. It's much more of a, she's plotting revenge, but I wouldn't say she's not hopping on a horse and going off. This is not that kind of Western, but but it is very much. It is. I think it evokes that sort of Western period really well as well.
Yeah, that was the other really clever line in it as well, when she asks him where his friends are, or something. He asks about one of his mates, and he goes, "Oh no, he's wandered off somewhere." And he's going, "Oh, that's strange, isn't it? Just disappeared." And he's like just totally clueless. It's like, thought that was really clever. Yes, we don't score the shots, but we certainly recommend you check these out. This is 10 minutes long. It's on Vimeo, and you shall find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Revenge of the Green Dragons. Set during the 1980s, this follows two best friends, Sonny and Steven, as they rise through the ranks of one of New York's Chinese gangs. This was co-produced by Martin Scorsese and co-directed by Andrew Lau, he of Infernal Affairs, among others. And you can sort of see, you could read a synopsis of this, of like, a period set gangster drama about an up-and-coming gangster with his cocky best friend, and and it almost sounds like Goodfellas. It could easily, it's certainly got the sort of same level of sort of violence to it. It's that sort of sprawling story. It goes from sort of the 80s through to the 90s. And you got
Ray Liotta in there.
Ray Liotta in there as well, of course. It is quite interesting. I did enjoy this overall. How did you get on with it, Steve?
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big gangster film lover anyway. I mean, obviously you got your exceptions like Goodfellas and stuff like that, but even I've never really got into the psyche of gangs at all. Even my wife was obsessed with like Ross Kemp on gangs and stuff, and I was just like, I don't get it. It doesn't do anything for me. I suppose it's trying to get out of the poverty and that kind of angle and stuff like that. But I was surprised with the violence, to be fair, especially at the opening. Towards the kids and stuff like that. He was actually quite brutal, and especially when they like kidnap and beat up one of the rivals.
One of the white tigers.
White tiger. Yeah, that was pretty shocking, to be fair. But all in all, I mean, it's acted well, it's shot well. It's just not my kind of bag really for the type of film, but it was okay.
For me, I wish it had been a little bit more bombastic. It sets up various things, and I just wish it had lent more into the sort of the the Hong Kong action style. It doesn't go down that route at all. All the action is all the sort of violence is quite sort of realistically done. But I think that's what was missing from it. Really, it's like it sets up this sort of nice sort of vengeance element, and then it just goes, no, it just didn't really sort of push it the way I wanted it to. If it had gone down, I don't know if you guys have seen State of Grace with Sean Penn.
I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
You know of it, all right. See, that's got this. It builds up to this sort of brilliant shootout at the end, and I think that that's what this film was missing, really, for me personally. So Rich, you found this one on Plex. How did you get on with it?
Yeah, it was actually better than I was hoping that it would be. I've been wanting to see it for years, but I've always been I'm not quite sure what it's going to be like. What the quality is going to be, because you get some of these films that they you know, they've had very, very quiet releases. You know, this isn't on UK DVD or anything. It's sort of tucked away on streaming. You know, it's got Ray Liotta in it, which is good, but you know, you get some of these foreign productions, and they've got you know, Hollywood stars sort of grafted in there, and it doesn't usually work. What I would say with this is that it's not I mean, I've seen Hong Kong movies that are set in America and, you know, with English language and stuff before. There was one I remember watching years ago. I think it was called American Dragons or something, and that sort of, and there was also Jet Li's The Master and stuff like that. But this one basically is an American movie. It's most of it's in English, because I thought it was going to be dubbed or you know, whatever. It's not. It's, you know, there's bits in English and in I'm not sure if it's Cantonese or Mandarin or both. I think there's elements of both languages in there, but it's like it feels like a Martin Scorsese production. You know, his kind of, it's made in his style. You know, he's obviously come on board. I mean, it's presented by him. He's like got an executive producer credit and stuff, but they're clearly modeled on. I mean, it's probably come out of the relationship, because of obviously, I mean, Andrew Lau had done Infernal Affairs, which then Scorsese then adapted, sort of remade, change it. But and I guess this is kind of an offshoot of that. It's sort of a few years later. I think it's good. I liked it. I thought the characterization. So it's rote. It's formulaic. It's your standard, you know, gangster movie conventions. The sort of the Ray Liotta stuff is kind of peppered in there, in the sort of, you know, oh, here's that American actor you recognize kind of bits that are mostly disconnected from the rest of the film, but it kind of works. What's curious is it's got this 1.5 hour running time, which again, I mentioned it earlier with Restart the Earth. You expect
I was surprised.
You expect some of these films to be longer, and I was thinking it feels like a Weinstein cut, if you know what I mean. You know, like when all those Jackie Chan movies and stuff were coming out, and they cut out all the plot. You know, they take a film or First Strike or something. You know, I know that wasn't Weinstein, but you get the point. It's like where they say, oh, let's take out all that stuff that's slowing the film down, and let's have this like 90-minute or 80-minute version. I can't find details of a longer version of this, which just seems odd to me, because it feels like there's stuff missing. It's just so brisk. But I'll stand back for a second. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you mentioned Ray Liotta. I mean, he brings a good point to the film about, you know, sort of the fact that the FBI aren't investigating, you know, the human trafficking and the Chinese gangs and stuff like that, which would be a lot easier to take if he wasn't such a fucking racist. Unfortunately, you know, his language is deplorable, because you know, he sort of say, oh, it's just like the blacks before them and the Jews after them and all this sort of stuff, and now we've got the bloody Chinese taking over. You know, they're like vermin and rats, and you know, rats jumping off a sheep and all this. And on top of that, you got we have a Chinese detective, who, you know, the gangs have this rule. The number one rule is you don't kill the whiteys, because you know, otherwise the cops are going to have to sort of give a shit. And that's sort of situation we get, you know, because he's having to investigate these, you know, these sort of gang killings with limited resources. And as he points out, sort of saying, you know, if it was a white neighborhood, if somebody's cat got stuck up a tree, there'll be more cops here than there are, you know, for a murder scene. And then as soon as one of the, you know, a white guy is caught in the crossfire, he's off the case. You know, it's like, no, we're bringing in proper detectives now, sort of thing. So there, you know, there is this sort of interesting element of sort of racism and sort of you know, racial prejudice going on, but it's just weird. You know, it's like, especially Ray Liotta's character, because you're thinking, on one hand, it's like he's making a good point, but at the same time, he's just like the worst, just the worst guy ever.
I didn't think he was. I didn't kind of get him as the worst guy, but I just kind of got him as kind of a representative of the period.
Well,
you know,
of
the attitude.
Is. Well, exactly. That's the thing. So looking at it from slightly more enlightened eyes, I should hope. But it's it just feels weird. Let me say that. Okay. Any other thoughts on this one, guys?
No, that's about it. That's me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it all plays. I mean, there's a sort of a plot twist kind of thing that maybe goes a bit too far. I don't think. I'm not sure if that 100% works in the film's favor. But,
it didn't work for me. No.
But if it's interesting to see a gangster movie from this perspective. Because we've all seen the Italians kind of stuff, so it is definitely interesting to see the Chinese experience, and I think the violence is quite heavy at times, but like you guys were saying, like especially that kid being beaten at the beginning, and why these kids would want to be drawn into that after their experience. It's like I didn't quite get it. I was like, oh yeah, We've just
one day I'll be on the other
being beaten or whatever. Yeah, now we're gonna join up with these guys because they're pretty heavy-handed. That's like crazy. But I liked it. I thought it was good. I recommend it. I think it's well worth a look.
Yeah, I mean we found a copy of this on Plex, and we shall put a link to that in the footnotes below. Go check it out. And that is the end of this week's show. So thanks to Steve and Rich for watching all these films this week.
No problem. Good selection, I thought.
It was a good selection, mostly. Yeah, Gurkha. I wish I'd switched Gurkha for Little Bone Lodge, personally. I think I got more out of that one. But I do intend to watch that in the next couple of days. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also check out the Short Shots, our sister show, where Rich will put a link to a new short every evening around about 8 o'clock. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.